Your credit limit could drop by as much as 75% based on a report from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. That's like going from a $10,000 limit all the way down to a $2,500 limit. The study used data from 2019, and some people had their limits reduced to below $400. And here's another problem. Banks can do this without any warning. So you can go to sleep with a respectable credit limit and wake up with a small fraction of that limit and a fully maxed out credit card to go along with it. See, during economic downturns like we've been experiencing recently, credit card companies may look at reducing consumers' available credit limits to reduce their risk exposure and prevent losses on their books. Credit limit decreases are an industry practice where a bank significantly cuts a customer's credit limit. Their available credit can disappear without warning or explanation, and it's completely legal, even though many people in my audience agree it shouldn't be. 67% of consumers who experienced declines in their credit line showed no evidence of a recent credit card delinquency. So this is a real potential threat to average unsuspecting cardholders who've done nothing wrong. We have to talk about why banks still use this shady practice, the negative effects it has on your credit, and 4 possible solutions. One reason why banks decrease credit limits is to prevent losses from consumers they believe will be unable to repay. Changes in the economic outlook or capital requirement obligations can lead credit card issuers to reduce credit lines to lower their risk exposure. Around the time of the Great Recession, credit decreases reduced total consumer credit card lines by about $405 billion between June of 2008 and January of 2010. Quarterly credit decrease activity more than tripled from affecting less than 1% of general purpose credit card accounts in 2006 to nearly 4% of accounts in 2009. A line decrease can also be used to limit exposure on accounts perceived as a higher credit risk compared to other accounts, as well as to reallocate credit from less active or profitable accounts. Issuers continuously monitor changes in consumer credit reporting data to spot changes in individuals' financial health. This makes total sense because it's common knowledge that some banks will soft pull your credit report every 30 days, which helps them analyze you for new credit card offers and automatic limit increases. Anyway, check out this graph showing the frequency of credit limit decreases since 2006. Deep subprime represents people with the worst credit scores, and super prime represents the best scores. You can clearly see a massive uptick of credit decreases during the '08 recession, and fast forward to today, you can tell we are back on the upswing, and it's a steep incline. So how much of a decrease can you expect if this happens to you? Unfortunately, banks don't play around when it comes to cutting you off. They could slash your limit by 75% or more. That's what some people saw back in 2019. Take a look at this chart showing the amount of limit decreases people were suffering at that time. The median limit after getting hit with a decrease was $400 for everyone that didn't have the highest level of credit scores. Also, having the best score just meant that your limit had more room to fall. The people with the top score fell from having close to a $7,000 limit down to over a $1,000 limit. That's a huge setback. Look at this next graph that shows how the decrease affected their total available credit limit. Every credit tier pretty much got cut in half. That's a 50% reduction in overall credit limit. Could you imagine waking up to that news? Some of you are still trying to grow your limit to a usable level. This would be a massive blow to that progress. That massive drop in available credit effectively causes you to max out that particular credit card limit. On average, the utilization rate on the impacted card reached a heart-dropping 94%. Other cardholders say that when this happened to them, the bank would drop their limit to a level just above the balance that was already on the card. So if they had a balance of $200, the bank would drop their limit to $250. A member of my audience told me that they were carrying a $5,000 balance on their card with a $7,000 credit limit. They woke up one morning and discovered that they only had $100 in available credit. The bank had reduced their limit to $5,100, making their utilization rate just under 100%. You cannot make this stuff up. This graph backs up that experience because if your score is anything other than the highest level, then your utilization rate is going up to almost 100% instantly on average. Your utilization rate makes up 30% of your credit score, so maxing it out will do significant damage, especially in the short term. This makes it substantially harder to access credit and potentially leaves you unprepared for unexpected expenses. You're 4 times more likely to have your limit decreased if you had a recent delinquency on your report. And in those cases, you could see your score fall by as much as 90 points. If you had no recent delinquencies, then you could expect a 20-point hit to your score. That's devastating to some people. It could knock you out of the running for a car loan or a mortgage. A year later, after the dust settled, most people's scores remain somewhat suppressed, not able to reach their previous credit score highs. If you're getting value from this, please hit the like button, and to learn more about cashback cards and to see what you qualify for, I'll have links down below. So what's the solution. There has to be something that we can do about this dirty practice that ends up hurting people's credit scores. The first tip is to simply keep all of your cards open and active. I know some of you will get frustrated when you use your card responsibly and the bank repeatedly denies you for credit limit increases, or you call in to negotiate a lower annual fee or interest rate and they deny you with little or no consideration. That will make you want to cancel your card for some instant payback. But I'm urging you not to do that. Don't fall for the trap of closing your card out of frustration as many others have. Holding a few cards by different credit card issuers helps you diversify your available credit so you don't have all your credit in one basket. If one bank decides one day that you are no longer profitable or your account activity is suspicious and decides to close your accounts, then it won't be the end of the world since you have sizable accounts with other competing banks. Also, closing accounts decreases your total available credit limit, which leaves less of a buffer for you to make regular purchases and puts you at risk of being heavily reliant on the few remaining banks that you have accounts with. If you have a few cards that you forgot about or threw into the sock drawer, then there's a chance that they could get closed due to inactivity. This happened to me last year on one of my accounts due to negligence. To avoid that from happening to you, place a small purchase on that card at least every 6 months to a year. You can even automate the process by topping up a Amazon gift card balance or using it as your dedicated streaming service card. Next, you'll want to keep your credit utilization rate low. Data points have shown that running up a higher credit balance on your cards, especially during an economic downturn, sets off red flags with the banks. That's even further evidenced by the story about my audience member who ran up a $5,000 balance on his card just before getting hit with a decrease. During this time, the banks are playing it super conservative and their main objective is eliminating risk. High balances are risky and a prime target for closure. Keeping your utilization low has the happy side effect of increasing your credit score, since maintaining a rate between 1 to 9% will give you your best FICO score, and FICO themselves even say that high achievers have an average utilization rate of 7%. That's far below the 30% figure you see touted across the internet. Next, a lot of people don't do this, but asking for regular limit increases goes a long way toward growing your credit limits. I know some of you had no problem obtaining automatic credit limit increases. Personally, the vast majority of my increases were initiated by me. I can count on one hand how many times I triggered an automatic increase. Not very much. You should look into the frequency that you can safely request increases without triggering a hard pull so you don't leave any money on the table. Some cards go by 6-month, 3-month, or even 30-day increase cycles. The higher your limit goes, the more money you can use without raising your credit utilization rate too high. Obviously, you'll want to pay your credit card bills on time. During the study, you were 4 times more likely to have your credit limit decreased if you had a 30 to 90-day delinquency on your file. Personally, I set up autopay for all of my cards and check them periodically throughout the month to make sure their payments go through as scheduled. There are a few ways and times you can pay that really get the job done, but since accounts are under a higher level of scrutiny during these uncertain times, I recommend paying your statement balance before your billing cycle closing date or paying your balance off on a weekly basis to maintain a low credit utilization rate. Next, I have a solution that allows you to quickly be heard by the banks, and that's to file a complaint with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. They're the law enforcement agency for financial companies like credit card issuers. When filing, you'll need to state what happened, what you think will be a fair resolution, and what you've done to resolve the issue. They will then send your complaint to the bank in question, and the bank usually responds within 15 days of your filing. I'll leave links to this on my website. I'll have that link below. So if you've been hit with a sudden credit limit decrease before, then you know how devastating that can feel. You can get out in front of it and raise your credit limits to guard against the negative effects of any single credit line decrease. To do that, it's important to know what cards have the potential to grow your limits the fastest and by the largest amounts. Banks like to keep that information secret, so that's why I made a list of the top 5 high credit limit cards of this year. So check that video out next. Thank you for watching, and you have a good one.